Hello there. Thanks for tuning into my presentation. So I'm George Jennings and I work at Cardiff Metropolitan University, which is in Wales in the United Kingdom. And I'm very grateful to Lau and Gabrielle and also Paul Bowman for allowing me to come in at the last moment. Originally I wasn't able to come to the conference in Marseille, but it's very nice in the sense that we're able to have a digital conference. So hopefully this presentation makes the use of images and digital presentations, as you can see here. So the title of my presentation is We Are the Gods, From Mesoamerican Religion to Embodied Philosophy in Mexican Xilam. So Xilam is a Mexican martial art that was developed in the 1990s, and it draws on, as you may see from this image, very different elements of pre-Hispanic Mexican culture. Okay, so today I'm going to look at the exploration of how the elements of this religion, so potentially a religion, can become a philosophy for life, and a philosophy that is taken through the body. So the main approach I'm going to use is archive materials, videos, documentaries, old footage that can often be seen on YouTube and Vimeo, and I'm going to base this in the middle ground between Xilam and the religion comes the Conchero dancers, and particularly this leader of the dancers, who's known as Andrés Segura, who was the mentor of the founder of Xilam. Okay. So taken together, this analysis, I'm showing how the pre-Hispanic Mesoamerican religio philosophy is embodied in Xilam, essentially how it's lived, how it's enacted. So you may be interested in some of my sources because as you'll be watching this on YouTube, you actually find out many of my sources yourselves. So I've highlighted the ones in bold here, in which we can see the primary material I've accessed and taken notes on, in which Andrés Segura appears. Okay. So for example, the Path of Quetzalcoatl is a 2-hour lecture he delivered about the philosophy that's lived and expressed through artwork particularly from the Aztec peoples. Okay, you can look at some more contemporary research as well. And I'm also grateful to some of the Xilam community for kindly providing some of the images used in this presentation. So Mesoamerican civilization is a broad, sweeping civilization explained by the anthropologist Guillermo Bonfil Batalla in his book Mexico Profundo, or Deep Mexico. Essentially, it has thousands of years of history across middle to southern Mexico and much of Central America, and includes, for example, the Maya and the people like the Tlaxcalteca, who are pictured here in a mural. People had similar beliefs. They all played, for example, a ball game. They had a similar diet, primarily based on corn, and they had obviously a similar religion and a form of warfare. And although they've evolved, obviously, with the conquest and changed over time, you could argue there's an argument essentially they still exist. They still operate through for example, their diet, through indigenous languages, through their customs and traditions, such as Day of the Dead. However, in terms of religion, and particularly with the Spanish influence and through the conquests and the first contact, they saw a parallel between Mesoamerican beliefs and, for example, the Romans and the Greeks. And obviously you can also argue ancient Egypt, so other civilizations. So we have here the depictions of gods as many ways as humans dressed up with different headgear and attire. And there is the lore or mythology that the first gods were a dual god known as Ometeotl, or dual energy, or dual god. And this dual god, which basically was a male god and a female god together, produced 4 other gods known as the 4 Tezcatlipocas. Okay. Now these Tezcatlipocas are also the ideas that drive Xilam, so and drive the philosophy that are, for example, divided into 4. The 4 ages of humans, such as childhood, adolescence, maturity, and old age. Okay, or the 4 seasons, as we all know the 4 seasons, and some of the elements of the earth as well. Okay, so these deities or gods represent certain time directions, such as north, south, west, east. Okay, and we've got the idea here that after during the conquest in the 1500s and several hundred years of colonization up to around 1821, the Spanish had basically 300 years in control of Mexico. You can see how it changed. So we had here is a depiction of a recent documentary on the British television, Channel 4, The Lost Pyramids of the Aztecs, in which we can see what the city of Mexico City would have been like when it was called Mexico Tenochtitlan. So this is the capital of the Aztecs, or really they were called Mexica. And we see here, and part of that, sort of the edge of the city, another base, Tlatelolco, which is now part of Mexico City. You can see here a square known as the Plaza de Tres Culturas, the Three Cultures Square, where we see a colonial church built on using the stone of the pyramid and surrounded by modern buildings. Okay, so lots change. In many ways, Mexico has the project of modernity, trying to be a modern culture through the government, but it has a strong base, a deep Mexico, you could argue, literally under the ground. Here it is waiting to be discovered, many by archaeologists. And however, despite these centuries of supposed progress towards modernity, many people have resisted this idea or used the idea of the Aztecs, so-called Aztec people, who were known, as I said, the Mexica, who were in central Mexico. And many was symbols. So you look at the Mexican flag, it has the eagle devouring snake on an agave cactus, which is part of the mythology of the Aztecs and why they settled in the original valley. And over the independence movements in the 1800s and then the revolution in the early 1900s, there were many poets, for example, and artists. You can see here murals depicting the Aztec peoples particularly and their history, and also the resistance to the European influence, seen here in Guadalupe Posada's artwork, or the depiction of his artwork, which kind of critiques the Eurocentric perspectives of the elite Mexicans. Okay. So the Aztecs, in that sense, and warriors have been used as a revelation against or resistance. Now, part of this is that throughout the centuries were Conchero dancers. Now, Conchero dancers, concha is from the shell. It was from the armadillo. So they use a guitar-like instrument taken from armadillo shell. And they play music and they move in a ceremonial sense. So this essentially is a living ritual, bringing in pre-Hispanic elements, but also mixing with European and Catholic symbolism in order to survive. The syncretism, as known as, is a symbiosis of these two, perhaps you could say, worldviews, to show how Mexico is a mixture of these two civilizations. And this has been, there's lots been anthropological research into these groups, such as Susana Rostra's work, which she revealed there's a sense of Mexicanness and Mexicanidad in which they're trying to express, particularly the indigenous approach to Mexico rather than European. Okay. And Andrés Segura Granados, he died in 1997, but he worked for many decades as a leader, or a Capitán General, a general captain, of a group. Okay, and it's been seen in documentaries such as Él es Dios, He is God, in the 1960s, and on to other footage in all the way up to the 90s, seeing him teaching and expressing the values of the pre-Hispanic age. Okay, seeing him much like a guru-like figure, in which he also linked to philosophy, to religion, to what he called scientific knowledge. For him, it wasn't necessarily religion; it was a scientific way of looking at the world. Although he has some background in studying biology at the National University. And in the Path of Quetzalcoatl, which is a lecture by Andrés Segura in the United States, where he had some guest lectures, he explained how Quetzalcoatl, essentially one of the deities in the Aztec pantheon, if you want to think of it in that way, it really is the potential for humans to become complete, to become rounded. Much like in Buddhism, Buddha is a figure for us to admire, actually aspire to be, or to move towards. We can all become Quetzalcoatl through dance, or through practices, through discipline, and through working on our spirit, which Quetzalcoatl represents. And of course, Xilam, as following this philosophy, tries to do this. So Marisela Ugalde, pictured the woman here in the middle next to Andrés Segura, she met him during the period of 1980s, 1990s, followed him as an apprentice in dance and through the philosophy, became part of his inner circle, and she added this philosophy to the martial arts she started to create, with her ex-husband, who was also a martial artist. So she, as I've studied elsewhere in a book, Women in Combat Sports, had many decades of research and practice in martial arts since the 1960s, and she's still active as a promoter of Xilam. And she still sees Andrés Segura as her spiritual mentor and guide, even to this day, despite him being dead for over 20 years. So part of this philosophy that they, in ways promoted and believed in, is the idea of non-duality and constant change and flux. So these symbols are modern depictions of the idea of Ometeotl, a part of the Mexicoyotl religion, or Mexicanidad, which promotes this modern way of looking at the Aztec philosophy. Now, people like, for example, James Maffei, a United States philosopher, comparative philosopher, have argued it's not necessarily a religion, but it was a worldview for the elite, educated Mexica or Aztecs, who had this knowledge and understanding of the world. Much like in many societies, the elite would be the ones who could read, could write, who worked with libraries, and they could understand, whereas the masses had the religion. So the elite philosophy and knowledge here is embodied in Xilam. So you can see that the Xilam logo has Ometeotl in the centre. It also has the directions of the compass point and the masculine and the feminine crosses. In that, also the idea of the duality, that we're both masculine and feminine. We're always changing and rotating, okay, through this idea of Olin, this movement, which is also seen in the Aztec or sun calendar, or different calendars as well, and then many of the symbols and signs seen in pre-Hispanic books known as codexes. Okay, so essentially the symbol of Xilam has this inside it, but also the movements. Okay, so for example, here's Marisela Ugalde depicting one of the monkey movements, which Xilam is also based in several animals. You can see here on the left we have the serpent, eagle, monkey, and we have the ocelot and the monkey, as well as the deer, the armadillo, so the iguana and the armadillo. So the 7 animals that are taught in systematic levels, okay, so progressive, like any martial art, really learn step by step. And the monkey's around the middle stage, and we see that she's been inspired by some carvings and wall paintings and other things, but also not just the way it looks, but also what it means and how it's part of the human development process. Okay, so Xilam essentially, the idea is rescuing, so a renaissance of Mexican martial arts, and that inspired by ancient cultures, as the European Renaissance was by the ancient Greeks and Romans. So is Xilam. It's been inspired by the Aztecs, by the Maya, by other peoples as well, including surviving peoples of Mesoamerica. And we have here the idea, okay, you have the animals, we have the symbols, but we also have rituals. Now, Xilam has rituals within it. So we see on the left, the opening and closing rituals are normally done down on the floor, crossing the arms, often closing the eyes, and making salutations to the earth, for example, to the environment, to your neighbour or your fellow human being, and for offers of friendship at the end of the class. And there are also many of the members of the group go to places like sacred sites, where it's very important in Mesoamerican beliefs, which they, for example, by the base of volcanoes, for example, places where the Aztecs themselves would have operated in. And it's interesting to note that the Spanish built their churches upon the base of pyramids, which we've seen in the previous photo, and this shows how the places are very important, linking to the language of Nahuatl, which is a central Mexican language, okay, which is also taught or promoted through Xilam. So here's a picture from a documentary from another anthropologist who did a visual study of Marisela Ugalde and different people who follow the Mexicoyotl religion or worldview. And here are some of the references I've used academically, some theoretical, and you can also contact me about some of my research if you like. And yeah, and as the Mexica would have said, may your sun be brilliant, because they believe that the sun gave us the energy. We should get up early in the morning to generate this energy, make the most of things, and pass the good wishes to other people. Okay. You can also follow me on Twitter if you have any comments, or feel free to send me an email, and I look forward to the discussion on Zoom. Thank you very much for listening. Tlasekamati, as the Nahuatls will say.